I don't know if you're going to necessarily think this is an objection depending on what your business is, but when you're selling license based, let's say software, and they're like, hey, I'm going to start with 15. They come back, like, I talked to my boss, we're going to start with one. So they're still going to buy from you, but it's at a ridiculously reduced rate.
Is it just to kick the tires, or just because that one person is just authentically the only person who wants it?
Usually they're a
That's a hard one and a timeless one. I mean, my first impulse would be to try and really deeply understand why it is that they made that decision. I don't necessarily know how to just like on the spot overcome that as an objection, but if we can drill down to the root and like learn that it's because they just want to share one license because someone wasn't comfortable paying for it, then there's like the opportunity to maybe point out some flaws and maybe some assumptions that they have that aren't necessarily accurate in terms of what they'll be able to achieve with just one license. Um, yeah, how have you guys thought about that in the past? Because that's a tricky one.
Does anyone else here sell software on a license based model?
Maybe not.
It's hard. I mean, the biggest thing, yeah, is I use a Chris Voss style objection handling strategy where I just try to understand where they're coming from. The two places it leads is, yeah, we're going to share it, or we're going to do a deal desk situation where we're going to have all of our reps send their documents to one person, and then they'll upload it to PandaDoc and send it out because they don't want to pay for the licenses.
What's like the pain there? What's sort of the pain for the users and the PandaDoc admins all sharing one license?
The pain is that it's a slow process and there's a lot of bottlenecks and potential mistakes.
That's
It's
where I'd
also
start.
like 15 grand less.
Yeah. At Toggle when they're trying to, because we make commission on ARR. So like when they're trying to go monthly, I have to pretty much, like, I'm still going to onboard them either way, but I'm really trying to get them to go annual. So we basically withhold any sorts of really detailed onboarding for ARR. And I'll effectively say, yeah, time tracking is a simple enough template, but the problem with it is a template. And the fact that you have a template, you're gonna have the human nature to fill it out. And that's not always the right way to use Toggle. Like there's some subtlety to it. And then I kind of describe the onboarding and like what that's the way they get as a result of it. So sort of driving into the pain of sharing one license, just like I kind of drive in the pain of not being onboarded, might be a good place to start.
Love it. Reid's in the waiting room, by the way, Nick.
Yeah, one thought is if they're going to have their entire sales team of like 10 or 12 reps dependent on a deal desk or a quoting desk, one thought that came to mind is you can ask them, how often do you run into like time sensitive opportunities? Like, do you have a pretty short and speedy sales cycle? Because if so, that person is going to be dealing with X number of opportunities per day or per week, and that's going to get really cumbersome on their admin load to the point where it probably doesn't make sense to have just like a dedicated salary for creating proposals. The other thing is like, what kind of risk does the business run into if that person has to suddenly disappear for a week? Like, are you screwed? Because that's not the kind of situation that we want you to run into. Like, as an insurance policy for the business, could it be worth it to drop an extra couple of grand just to A, not have to run into these bottlenecking issues, B, not have to overburden someone with just like administrative crap that they probably didn't sign up to do full time, and then C, not have risk of a single point of failure.
I
Are there
love
any
it.
like functional worst case scenarios, like beyond just like, yeah, it's like just like if you had like one Zoom info, like we had an admin do like Zoom info, had one license, and people just submit a request to her and they'd come back with the lead, just cumbersome, ridiculous, and just like overloaded the admins in the office. Is there, like, aside from that sort of thing, is there anything else like functionally that makes it more challenging to use? Like, is there a way that the system get overloaded or maybe do something like wrong, just like some other way to like kind of give them a fear of loss?
Yeah, if multiple people are trying to work on the same document with one license, it messes everything up and it'll oftentimes not save. But it's hard to appeal to. So like what I'm trying to figure out is it's hard to appeal to logic when people are like this because it's not a logical decision to go from 15 to one license. And oftentimes when you remind them of this stuff, they're just like, yeah, but it's, 15 grand or $500. I'm going to take the 500. And if we do see issues like you're describing, then we can just buy more. But it's so much less. So it's hard. I think like the method that I've taken is I just go, I'm not going to sell you one. I just tell them I'm not going to do it. I'll turn down the deal. And then that will get them to ask me why.
There's no self-serve model in PandaDoc.
There is, but it's like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And I'd rather you go through the website. If you want to go through me and get onboarding and figure out the right way to do this, I'm happy to discuss it.
There it is.
Like, which one do you want to do?
There it is. I think that's more than fair. It's not a one-sided thing. There's a reason that he's talking to you. You have something he wants. PandaDocs, I mean, from just having used PandaDoc, it's definitely easy to use once you're set up, but I think I'd have like a bitch of a time trying to set it up myself.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and there it is.
I think it would probably help to attack this from like a sympathetic approach, at least framing it that way, where you call out right on the spot, okay, yeah, I've seen this before. I'm guessing you're doing this to save money, and that makes sense. I see where you're coming from, but I can't in good faith allow you to do that, and here are the reasons why. That way, you're putting yourself in the position of like, I'm trying to help you. I know what you're thinking, but this is a mistake. You can go do it on your own, but I'm not going to let you fall like this.
Do you guys like that? I feel that way too. Do you think that's appropriate overall? Like, I'm always in the back of my head, like, is someone going to get pissed at me for doing that? But I believe deep down that it'll close more revenue for the business and also be better for the customer by doing it. But I have a feeling that some people don't see it that way.
What's the worst case scenario if they get pissed at you?
My worst case scenario, and Reid, you can attest to this, the person reached out to our CEO and got all pissed about it. So it's one of those things where I'm like, kind of iffy about it, but I agree. I want to do it. That's why I want to work for myself. It's like I don't have to worry about the CEO getting reached out to.
You just gotta do it nicely.
Yeah, people probably already disagree with the current strategy of I'm just not going to sell you. So if you can experiment and play around with other methods like what Logan suggested and they